signal now for when I'm needed. But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning to them.
Yes, sir. Welcome to Beyond the Bat Signal. I'm your host, Domenic. Join me as we dive into the depths of Batman's lore, dissecting the rogues gallery, and uncovering the stories of our iconic vigilante known as the Dark Knight. Thank you very much for tuning into today's episode, where I think that this is a little overdue. And I'm talking about Batman The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, issue number 5, which was, I believe, released on February 26th. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it's February 26th. Anyway, I've had it, finally read it, and I wanted to get my thoughts, review out there on this. I guess it's a 10-issue series by Jeff Loeb. And the art for this month, and I don't want to mess up this name, but I feel like I will, and I apologize, is by Bill Sienkiewicz. I'm going to call him Bill S. But anyway, the art was done, and I'm going to share my thoughts about, I guess, the entire story, and I guess we'll just go from there. But before we dive into today's episode, I just want to thank each of you for listening in. And, it's been, I guess, overwhelming positive. I mean, we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary, and it was, I think, my first episode was dropped on February 27th, and then I guess my most recent episode, which you can listen to, was episode 32, where I gave a hands-on review just about the MetaQuest 3, the VR headset, which blew my mind. I am in the midst of playing Batman Arkham Shadow, and I'm in love with this game. And that was my 1-year anniversary episode. Now, with that being said, if you'd like to rate and review this show, believe me when I say this, it really helps go a long way, especially with the algorithm. And you could do that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio. There's an app. And anywhere you listen to podcasts, I'm pretty sure you can rate and review this show, which really does help spread the word. With that being said, let's get into today's topic, where it is Batman The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, issue number 5. And it is titled Prisoners. Overall, so, I mean, the story starts off where Batman was shot by Mario Falcone, and he's in the midst of recovering from the previous issue. And in this issue, he's recovered, he's back on his feet, but he's not 100%. Actually, not even close. And there are prisoners that have escaped Arkham Asylum, and here you have Joker, who is like out and about. He's got Mad Hatter's hat, the Riddler's, I guess, looks like a bow. I don't know. It looks like a cane, a long cane. Anyway, I think you know what I'm talking about. If you've ever watched the 66 series or Batman Forever, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it starts off with the Joker is being confronted by Batman. And normally, when it comes to the physicality part, Batman has no problem handling the Joker, I'd say for the most part, especially when it comes just one-to-one. However, on this issue, Batman is very weak, and he's struggling. Like, the Joker really does a number on him, and it wasn't until Catwoman comes in and actually comes to Batman's aid and really helps him out and stops the Joker, which I thought was, a nice little touch. Now, there's this story with Loeb now that they always kind of touch upon that. Yeah, Catwoman's in Arkham, but she can leave whenever she wants. And right away, when I was reading that, I was like, oh, if you ever watch Joker Folie à Deux, you have Harley Quinn, who admitted herself into Arkham, but she's able to leave whenever she would like. I don't think it's a nod. I just saw some parallels that I wanted to point out. But it's a little hint as to like, well, why is that subplot? Like, why is that kind of significant for Catwoman? Don't know. And we don't find out in this issue, but I'm sure with issue 6, 7, 8, and 9, and 10 coming out soon that we are going to find out. But yeah, it's interesting to see where Joker really, does a number on Batman, and then you have Catwoman just use her whip to kind of stop Joker. And, one thing with Jeff Loeb, he really does know how to write Joker, and like the way he talks, I instantly hear Mark Hamill's voice in my ear or in my mind while I'm reading Jeff Loeb write Joker. You have, then there's another subplot. So that's going on with the Gordons. And I'm talking about Jim Gordon and Barbara Gordon. It's at this point, New Year's Eve into New Year's Day. And she's obviously been drinking. And she's upset. She's like, once again, it's just me and my son all alone. And you, Commissioner Gordon, are not here to spend time with your family. And it just seems like, she's obviously upset. She needs a partner, and he's never there when she needs him most. And he's conflicted because he's like, well, listen, we have another holiday killer out there that I have to stop. And at the same time, he's like, then there's my family that needs me, right? But he obviously has made the decision to, one, choose Gotham City over his family and protect it. And he just feels like, he in his mind, he thought he told her that he was going to be working late, but I guess he didn't. And she just said, listen, like, you never told me. And, I get it. Like, this is your dream to clean up this city. But what about the family that we have here? What about our son who we finally got back? What happens to all that? And it seems like you've made your decision to choose Gotham City, and I'm going to choose my decision to leave. Now, the next couple of pages has where Batman's back at the Batcave thanks to Catwoman saving Batman. And just, it seems like she's always around and is very present whenever Batman is in danger and always protecting him. But at this point, you have Alfred stitching up Bruce and basically encouraging him, like, listen, you need to rest. And Batman, being Batman, he's not going to rest. You see him lifting some weights. It looks like he's got, I don't know, he's doing some bench press here and really pushing himself and telling him, Robin, basically, that whoever shot Catwoman, Penguin, the Riddler, all have the original Holiday 22 pistol. Same barrel grooves, same tape, same acid burning the serial numbers. And then Robin is trying to talk to Batman, saying like, but he or she, they are the only ones wounding the victims. And Batman, just being stern, is just like, listen for once. Then you have another scene where Robin and Batman are training, and Robin, using his, it looks like a bow, is constantly hitting the injured area at Batman, and Batman's just like, hit me harder. And then Batman, nothing ever gets by him, and he says, hit me with the same force that you used to crack Calendar Man's glass cell. And Robin's just like, what? How did you know that? And Batman just says, like, you didn't think I would find out? Because of your carelessness, he set everyone on the loose. So, I mean, and by when he's saying he set everyone loose, he's referring to Calendar Man. But yeah, and I thought that overall, like, that was nice that they had just kind of addressed it from the previous issue. And Robin just kind of like thinking, oh, okay, I got away with something because Batman's asleep, and obviously we're waiting for him to wake up and recover. Now with the Joker, he's kind of rounding up all the villains who have, I guess, escaped, or any type of villain. Like you have Tweedledee and Tweedledum captured. It looks like the Riddler is being brought right back to Arkham. You have Mad Hatter brought back to Arkham, and Batman's just like, is that why Joker is rounding them back up? It's because, it's almost as if the Holiday copycat wants them all in Arkham, and Batman's trying to make sense of it. Then we kind of get like fast forward into Valentine's Day, where Batman says, I'm ready, finally. And his first thing to do is go after Scarecrow. Scarecrow looks to be planting a dynamite bomb on a bridge and plunging Gotham into darkness and into the fear. Kind of reminds me of any type of explosion where like there's this fear gas that's going to spread, kind of like Batman Begins, and it would spread across Gotham and have them all live in fear with this toxin out in the air. And Batman gets his hands on the bomb and tries to throw it away. It blows up, obviously, and Joker at the bottom of the scene, or at the bottom of the page, goes, my fair lady, and he's collecting all these straws that are connected to Scarecrow, which I thought was a nice little touch. And you're like, okay, well, what's he gonna do with these straws that it came off of Scarecrow? And then you have Jim Gordon doing Jim Gordon things, hanging out right by the signal at the top of GCPD, and you have the FBI agents hanging out upstairs saying, we heard the nightlight had been fixed, figured you'd be up here, and talking to Gordon saying Gilda Dent fingered Mario Falcone for your son's kidnapping. And Gordon responds like, listen, this woman is unstable. You cannot believe anything that she says. Then we have pretty much a full page where you have Joker on this black horse chasing after what looks like, it almost looks like a cab, but it's not. It's just a yellow car. And Joker lines right up to where Mario Falcone is, and you have the FBI agents in the car with him. And Joker, there's a little bit of a hint to Mr. Freeze, so it looks like he's got the freeze gun. And Mario Falcone looks up and is like, oh God, another lunatic. Here we go. And he says, stop the car. There's a couple of little Easter eggs which I'll go back on that the Joker drops, and one of them is like the McDonald's, can I take your order? And one tasty Mr. Freeze coming right up. I like that. Like the writing in that is just like, it makes you smile, like kind of a smirk, like, oh, that's clever. Anyway, so Joker fires the freeze gun, and the car pretty much goes over the edge. And at the same time, you have, it looks like, I guess with the coloring, it's kind of highlighted in red, but there is that .22 caliber pistol that just goes, boom, shoots, and you see the shot go right through the car, killing the two agents, and it flips right over. And Batman, obviously distracted by Scarecrow, saying, I heard the gunshot. It's Holiday. Damn it, I just missed it. And I was distracted by Scarecrow. And then there's this huge explosion where, it was the dynamite that Batman threw away. And the first reaction is Batman goes after Joker and blaming him. Like, what have you done? There were federal agents in that car. And then Joker's just like, oh, were there? I had no idea. I was making up for what that idiot Brad did, basically, that the runaround. And I think he was talking about Alberto Falcone. Oh, my God. Mario Falcone. So, and he's like, listen, no one, and everyone knows this, no one gets to kill you but me. And he's talking to Batman, essentially saying that. Now, Batman, in the back of his mind, is like, the Scarecrow's fear toxin. We're both going to get affected by this. Now, does his insanity have no end? He's talking about Joker. But Joker, literally at the bottom of the page, has all these straws, breaks them, and just says snap, and you see like this like yellow gas going around, and it immediately affects both Joker and Batman. And Joker has this like nightmare scene. It almost is like a reenactment of Bat and Bruce as a kid, right? They're leaving the Mask of Zorro. It's a happy family. Batman's leaving the theater with Selena Kyle, but they're both dressed up as Batman and Catwoman. And then you have Robin, who's so happy to leave the movie, but he's just like an excited little kid. And then there's a gun, basically a .22 caliber, pointing it right to Robin. And these like muted colors kind of emphasize just like the fear, and you could tell that it's a dream. And Robin's just like, I was only trying to help. And all you see is turmoil and crying, and just Batman looks devastated. Catwoman's crying. And then you have in red, like basically like 2 X's on the eyes of Robin's body, and just saying like, he died. And Batman's like, I made a promise. So now you know that the fear toxin's already hit Batman. This is just a dream, and it's not true. And then there's like this little like antidote that kind of brings Batman back to like think straight. And so Batman's coming back, and he's just like, okay, like I don't understand what just happened. But he's looking down at Joker and was informed like, Joker's still lost in the fear state. And then, Batman's asking Robin, like, what did you see? Robin doesn't really answer the question, but Batman gets a hold of Mr. Freeze's freeze gun, and just is like, I have no idea how long I was under Scarecrow's toxin, but I have to get this fire out, because there was a fire, and it was right by the florist, so kind of alluding to poison ivy. And not only that, they go to check the car, which flipped over, and Batman checks, and the FBI agents' bodies are in the car, but there's no sign of Falcone, right? So the killer definitely wanted Mario Falcone, but again, there's a few things that were left behind that are clues. It looks like Valentine's Day cards, the gun, the .22 caliber gun, which is taped, and we already know, well, okay, the killer is obviously not Mario Falcone, because he was in the car. So then there's like these green leaves in front of a florist, and Batman immediately thinks, okay, Ivy's part of this. Then we go back into the other subplot where it's Gordon and his wife Barbara, and she's packed her bags, and Jim's like, Barbara, what's happening here? And she's just like, you're too good of a detective. Do I really need to tell you and spell it out for you? And I'm taking our son, and we're leaving you. And, I'm not the biggest fan of the art, and I'll talk about that shortly. But I love how Bill S. draws this, where, as soon as Jim finds out, it's just like, oh my God. It's like a nightmare for him. And he's like, my family's leaving. And it just leaves off with Barbara leaving, and it's like, Gotham City or this family, you already made your choice, and I finally made mine, Commissioner Gordon. And she just takes off. To cap off the story, though, we go back to Arkham Asylum, where Joker is back there, and Batman's informing Jim, like, Agent Sullivan and Edwards are dead, Falcone's missing. And Jim's like, well, thank God, at least you caught the Joker, but is he the last of them? And Batman's just noting, there's still Ivy, Freeze, Calendar Man out there. And Joker, where I still hear Mark Hamill's voice, is, I know something you don't know. And then Batman's just like, what is that supposed to mean? And Batman just says, with each step, we are being outmaneuvered. Someone who knows us, who knows how we think. And Jim's like, is it Falcone? Batman's like, where's Harvey Dent? And again, we get a little crumb of the Harvey Dents. So Gilda, and because really the last we heard of them was issue 1, right? Especially Harvey, like we thought he was shot and dead, and we didn't know what happened to him. So there's a doctor. It's hard to see who he's. All you get a good look at his face, but it's covered up with a mask, and he's got a cap on, and he's meeting up with Gilda Dent in the sewers, and just he says like, "Listen, you know, I don't know if he's going to recognize you." And she's like, "I'm his wife, for God's sake." And he tells her like, "Just so you know, like, during this time of healing, like, you know, he's had brain surgery from the bullet. With his unique personality, I thought it's best to give him some more time, but you can be quite insistent," telling Gilda Dent. So he goes, and there's like this huge, like, it looks like an aluminum or steel door that he's opening up, and he informs Gilda that we actually met the night your husband was admitted for acid burns. I was the attending surgeon, and he nearly killed me, but that led to my current line of work, a second chance. So he opens up the door, and he tells Gilda, "Please, Miss Dent, don't say or do anything to upset him." Her eyes are wide open. She's like, "Harvey?" And the final page is of Two-Face, and right behind him is Solomon Grundy. And Harvey just responds with, "Miss Dent, what are you doing here?" But he kind of has a face of shock. And that's how the story caps off. So, overall, what are my thoughts? Let's start with the artwork. I thought the artwork was okay. I don't think it was great. I think it was probably my least favorite in the entire series. To be honest, I just found it somewhat distracting. The part I did like was, like, there was a couple of panels that I did like. You know, the one of Jim Gordon that I mentioned. I liked the little flashback of, you know, where Batman is under the fear talks, and it just felt like a flashback. It felt like a dream. It felt very dark and gritty. But the rest of the story, I don't like how Bill S. draws Batman. I don't like how he draws Joker. I don't like how he draws Catwoman. I'm just not a big fan. I felt like it kind of took away from the story, if anything. I thought the coloring by Dave Stewart was incredible. I thought it was really well done. But the way Batman was drawn, it almost felt like the entire story was a dream sequence. And which, again, it's just not my cup of tea. To some people, I think they'll like it. I could see why. For me, it doesn't fit this story. That's just me. I'm curious to see what we get. And, you know, I think with the previous other iterations of artists, I thought that they did a pretty good job for the most part. But this one, I found that it was my least favorite. Again, that's just my opinion. With the main story, you know, we're getting little crumbs that are leading us to finding out who Holiday is. I still have no clue. Probably someone a lot smarter than me will be able to kind of pinpoint exactly who it is. But obviously, Mario Falcone is out of the question. The little subplots with Catwoman is interesting because, you know, she is able to go into Arkham, but she's able to leave anytime she wants. So, like, what's up with that? The whole thing with Jim Gordon, you know, you're seeing marital troubles go on with them two, and Batman noticed that Jim's like a little off, and he's not sure, like, you know, what's going on. Like, obviously Batman doesn't know. He doesn't really partake in Jim's personal life. And they keep it completely professional, but he's noticing that Jim's a little off, and rightfully so. He had his son who was taken, and then now his wife's leaving and taking the son again for a second time. So, you know, I actually don't mind this aspect. I think that it's going to lead to somewhere. Right now, it's kind of like up in the air as to like if they don't do anything, it kind of reminds me of The Dark Knight Rises, where they kind of just touch upon it, like, well, what happened to the wife and the kids? Well, you know, she picked up and left, and then that was it. I mean, there they mentioned it, but this was like, for 5 issues, they kind of alluded to like the frustrations between Barbara having towards Jim and his job. And I'm kind of curious if that's where it ends or if they'll continue to add to that subplot of the story. I hope they do, because I like it. I feel his pain. I feel her pain because it's like, she's not being acknowledged, not being recognized, and she just wants her husband, and he's constantly choosing Gotham City. And obviously these holiday killings are putting a wedge in between them. And then you have Batman, who at one point looked somewhat like, he looked like he could lose, right? Like he was getting beaten up by Joker, and here's Catwoman coming to save the day. And it's nice to show Batman being very vulnerable, and he's not always that physical force against Joker. And to even see Joker have an upper hand to switch things up is nice. I liked it. And then to include Scarecrow's fear talks and showing that little flashback, I mean, right there was probably I think my favorite part. If I had to choose a favorite panel, I mean, that one's really difficult. I always go by the Ryan Lauer school of thinking, and it's like, well, can it tell you a story? If you were to take out all the words, what would be your favorite story, or what would it be like if you could tell a story from it? So I think kind of like the first panel, to be honest, where Joker's just tipping his hat and he sees Batman in the shadow. Pretty cool with Arkham Asylum. And like really you can look at that and make up an entire story just based on that panel. That was pretty good. And even like the emotions that they have with Jim sitting alone in his apartment, and obviously it's New Year's Day and Barbara left him. He's obviously like, I thought I told you, but the story. So the story I thought was pretty good. I think it pushes everything along, but just a little bit, not as much as before. I'm kind of curious if they kind of pick things up, because it feels like it's a slow burn at this point, and I'm really dying to know, like, okay, what's going to happen next? Where's this all going? What's going to even happen with Catwoman? What's going to happen with Jim? Even Robin, like, he's been sprinkled in here, I think just enough, and it's still very much a Batman-centric story. Still has that noir feel where you're kind of guessing, like, okay, like, what hint are they dropping? And I feel like it's right in front of my face. Someone much smarter than me is going to figure it out, and I'm sure if I search it, they've already figured out who the killer is. I think that Jeff Loeb is trying to make you think it could be a number of people, but is it Calendar Man? Is that obvious? Is it also, could it be Catwoman? Because they're kind of saying, like, well, why is it that Catwoman just chooses to stay in Arkham? Is it that obvious? Like, she has a vendetta against the Falcones, right? She does. But overall, I think I'd give this story about a 7 out of 10, a B. I thought I enjoyed it. It was a good read. I think that the art really took away from the entire story. I thought it was bothersome for me. At times, kind of hard to make out certain scenes. I think the big one was where the car was flipping. I'm like, okay, like, what is going on here? And I'm looking at it right now. But Jeff Loeb still writing fantastic story, and this guy's gonna have, I guess, Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, and Hush 2 drop on the same day, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check. Yeah, March 26th, same day as Hush 2 with Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb. That is going to be a banger. And talk about the sales. I just looked it up, and the sales are going through the roof. I think they've sold already 40,000 copies. Insane. And that's just pre-order. Good for them. They're going to be very rich. Anyway, so those are my overall thoughts with Batman, The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, issue number 5, titled Prisoners. Curious to hear what your thoughts are. If you have any questions or you want to share your thoughts about the story thus far, please reach me at through email, beyondthebatsignal@gmail.com. My next episode, I anticipate being the full game review of Batman Arkham Shadow. I am playing it and I'm loving it. I really hope that a lot of you guys like kind of listen in and be like, man, I really need to give this game a chance because it is worth your while. But yeah, I think these are my thoughts over the Batman The Last Halloween. I thought it was an enjoyable book. I feel like once I read it all together, it's going to flow a lot better. There was obviously that little month break in February where it kind of held things off for me, and I had to kind of go back and be like, okay, what happened in the last issue? But yeah, now we have issue number 5 in the books, and that's it. Now it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's just a couple more to go. We're halfway done, and like I said, we have to enjoy the ride, and I'm enjoying it so far. This is honestly a really good little series that I have been keeping up with a bunch of different artists. You really are missing. I do miss Tim Sale being part of this little series, especially in this month. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but overall, I'm enjoying it. Anyway, I'm rambling on way too long. But yeah, last thing. Please rate and review this show if you can on Apple, iTunes, or whatever it is, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It really does help spread the word. But that's it for now. So living in Canada, we're on March break, so I'm kind of enjoying the week off. And stay tuned as there's going to be an upcoming episode. So if you don't follow, I guess I'll share a couple of episodes that we've had. So Ryan Lauer was recently on, and we ranked our favorite Arkham games. And you can listen to that episode. I believe it was episode 31. And he's from the Batman Book Club. And he also is part of Batman on Film, which you can Google, Batman-on-film. And he also reviews Batman The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween. He was a fantastic guest. I was also on a guest where we reviewed Batman The Heart of Hush. And upcoming episode is Peter R. Vera. So he's also been on the show. And I was just a guest on his show called the Italian Spider-Man Coalition. So that will be coming out later this month. But highly recommend you check it out. It's all about Spider-Man. They do talk about Batman here and there. But it's a lot of fun. And Pete is just a hoot to listen to. So yeah, definitely check that out. Now, with that being said, my name is Domenic. This is Beyond the Bat Signal, and we are signing off.